Africa's creative industry presents immense growth potential driven by a growing youth population, increasing urbanization and digitization, spanning music, film, digital content, fashion and events. It could represent a 2 to 7% of GDP and drive economic growth with greater governmental focus. At the heart of Africa lies Rwanda, a landlocked country commonly known as the land of a thousand hills. With 40% of its population being youth, Rwanda is well positioned to harness the untapped creative economy market. And in this episode of Game Changers, we spotlight a section of Rwanda's shaping this industry and preparing it for a glorious future. Africa's music industry is at a tipping point, with the music market expected to show an annual growth rate of 11.32% between now and 2027, resulting in a projected market volume of $47 million by 2027. Digitization is bridging the gap between creative economies of developing countries and world markets. The same is true for Rwanda, where interconnected streams like videography, film and photography are key contributors to its creative industry. Philip Nyirimihigo is one of Rwanda's leading photographers and videographers, renowned for capturing iconic photos of President Paul Kagame and telling the Rwandan story through creative and authentic photography.
Illume is an idea that's born out of 5 friends who, at the time, so we're talking about 2010, wanted to literally change what you see when you Google Rwanda and Africa. The frustration was that when you Google those two things, or when you Googled Rwanda, the results was always naturally about our history and the tragic events we had gone through in 1994, the genocide against the Tutsi, and then the gorillas, which were starting to pick up as an attraction, as a tourism attraction for the world to come visit and see. So when that happened, we said, but we're also experiencing other things beyond just that. We're going to spoken word events, we were going to music events, we were going to exhibitions, all kind of stuff that was happening around the city that made Kigali that much more interesting. And so we decided to start a creative and communication agency called Illume, which Illume means to bring to light. And yes, so to illuminate, to bring attention to the world and expand especially what you Google when you Google Rwanda.
For a long time, African stories have been told by third parties and therefore in most cases lacking the African touch and authenticity. Illume Studios is presenting an opportunity to tell Rwandan stories the right way and also contribute to economic prosperity.
What was there in 2010 was quite different in the fact that a lot of the content was captured by foreigners. And what we said and showed not only to Rwandans but to the continent was that we were able also ourselves to create our own content of quality. And with that, it was to constantly inspire and show that it can be done, right? I think the moment you show that it can be done, then you start creating a community of people who are actually able to do it. And with that attraction, what's happened is we've seen more and more Rwandans, creatives, photographers, videographers, really crisscross the country. It started with the phones. I remember, for example, one thing that happened was when the fiber cable was laid out across the country, over 3,000 kilometers at the time, it allowed people to jump on 4G. And with 4G and smartphones, people now were able to take photos and share them on Instagram. Instagram is a global company, so it made it that easy to now show our side and not always rely on maybe outsiders to tell that story. So we've seen that shift happen. It's been exciting to see Rwandan creatives really pushing the envelope. And yes, as a result, quite a bit has happened. Most recently, the Ministry of Youth, and now gaining an arts, Ministry of Youth and Arts, gaining a new portfolio, which now has pulled and elevated, I think, on quite a high level, the creative and cultural industry. Yeah.
Annually, the film and audiovisual industries in Africa account for $5 billion of the continent's GDP, while employing an estimated 5 million people, with the potential of creating over 20 million jobs and generating $20 billion.
I think in terms of revenues and how do we, as a creative industry, capture most of it. At the moment, I think one of the biggest, I want to say, in Rwanda, it's still through the MICE industry. So because of all these conferences, the only way you find out that they happen is because there are photos and videos and people are there to organize and make those things happen. So that is still one of the biggest players. What we've seen is naturally also the creatives have evolved into, whether it's photographing weddings, portraits, music videos, all those things are happening. And the next frontier that I think RDB, Rwanda Development Board, has been helping with is especially on the copyright law and helping creatives being able to first even register or understand why they're registering for their rights, because later on you can derive revenues from the IP. So I think that's an exciting phase that Rwanda is entering and then has entered, because some work has been done. It's more about sensitizing and including more people to understand that those things are there, those tools are there to benefit them. And yes, compared to some of our neighbors, Kenya being one of the best examples, is that they've been able to make quite some strides in that area. But it's really exciting having a ministry now that really understands and values and the creative sector. And there've been quite a few conversations where we've been called in and involved in continue to shape and educate each other and understand what tools are available to us, whether it's in Rwanda or even continentally. I think so. That's really one exciting thing, and I think we'll see more and more people, especially, benefit from the IP laws, because then there will be some revenues generated from that.
We cannot talk about photography without mentioning content creation, and in Rwanda's vibrant digital landscape, a new wave of content creators is coming of age, captivating audiences with a diverse and engaging content, exemplifying the power of engagement in shaping Rwanda's digital economy. Sylvia Sugira is one of the most famous content creators in Rwanda, who has worked with several brands to exemplify the Rwandan tourism sector.
I create content basically about traveling and exploring different parts of the world, and then I share my experience about all those places that I go visit, be the good, the bad, and I focus especially on our country, because the big part of the audience that follow me and follow what I do are Rwandans, not necessarily Rwandans, I should say, because recently I was checking my insights and I found that so many people are from America and Canada, but you find that those are Rwandans and maybe not Rwandans, but I focus on Rwanda especially because I want them to get to see what is in Rwanda, what Rwanda has to offer, and yeah, pretty much that. I feel like we live in a digital world, and most people in Rwanda and all over the world, they use social media and different platforms. And the reason why I think that it has evolved quite significant, it's because at this point right now, many brands work with influencers or digital creators. You find that every brand at this point, when they want to reach a certain audience or a big audience, they do that through different influencers. And that shows you that at this point, people understand the impact that creators have on the growth in general, And it also shows that this digital industry is growing rapidly.
Rwanda is a host to many global events, and hence the most significant campaign dubbed Visit Rwanda has been spearheaded by influencers drawing thousands of tourists to Rwanda and showcasing Rwanda's hidden gems.
My experience working with Visit Rwanda was honestly one of the most beautiful experiences that I've had working with a brand. Mostly because everything was well organized, and me being a Rwandan content creator, that was the opportunity for me to be able to cover a lot in terms of like everything that Rwanda has to offer, and to share with the audience that follow me. So through working with Visit Rwanda, because they have like a list of things that at least we can showcase basically. So doing that kind of like helped me to, because my goal is to be able to showcase our culture, everything that Rwanda has to offer, which is why this experience of like working with Visit Rwanda was one of the best that I've had, because it was me doing something that I truly, truly love in terms of like showcasing everything that Rwanda has to offer. So many places that I went to while I was working with Visit Rwanda, all the places that I had visited in the past, but this time it was quite very well curated, and it was so easy for me to actually showcase that to my audience. So that's why I would say that that was definitely one of the most beautiful experiences that I've had. So them working with Rwanda and being with Rwanda on this, let's say, BAL thing that was happening, it helped our country to be able to get to as many people as it could get to at the same time. But I applaud them for working with Rwandans, because I feel like as much as we work with other creators, and as much as it helps the country to get to many people at the same time, it's also very important to involve Rwandans, to involve Rwandan creators, because it's so easy for people to understand and get a clear perspective from a person that has been here, born and grew up in the country, that understand the history, the story of our country, than just someone that is just visiting. Because I visit different countries as well, but I only take the highlights. And as much as I try to understand what is going on in there, I don't get it quite well. So it's so easy for, like, I could give you an example. It's so easy for me to talk about my family than the other person can talk about my family. If I talk about my family, you're going to understand me better than the other person that is talking about my family. So which was a good thing that I applaud the RDB and Visit Rwanda for involving Rwandans. And as much as, yes, it helps, because when we work with them, we get to a larger audience that we cannot get to as Rwandans, unfortunately, by now. But also, I think it's very important to work with Rwandans. Yes, we helped each other, we grew, we learned from each other when we were on this trip together. But yeah.
Common to many other sectors, Rwanda and other developing countries face obstacles with the new market. A common challenge is that creators lack negotiating power with big brands and online platforms to share revenue fairly.
Right now, it looks very promising, but I also cannot say that it's something that, as a Rwandan creator, I can rely on 100%. Not even, I think, 60%, unfortunately. So, which is why I think that we still have a long way to go. You'll find that in most cases, you're working with different brands, and it's mentioned as they are giving you visibility. But at the end of the day, yes, you're giving me visibility, and I'm so thankful for that. But there's a lot I have to invest to be able to keep myself going. Even for me to get to where I am now, I had to invest a lot. And unfortunately, we live in a financial world. So I still need to keep myself going. And if I want to be 100% creative, and that means I have to focus on this 100%. And if I focus on this 100%, that means I have to stop every other thing that I'm doing. But then, can I stop before I know that this is going to sustain me as an individual, as a creator that still have bills to pay? No. So I feel like we still have a long way to go. Brands necessarily in Rwanda needs to maybe put some more effort in terms of like supporting creators, paying them, not necessarily just giving them visibility. We appreciate that, but it's still a long way to go. Still paying them, giving them the motivation. Because I find that in other countries, not even far, like in Kenya, South Africa, and I'm not even mentioning big countries, you find that there are people that are full-time creators. And that helps them because they keep growing. They focus 100% on their creative part of life. So they keep growing. And that is because they get paid. They get paid from different brands to work as creators. So they sustain themselves. They are able to pay their bills by doing exactly what they love to do. But it's not yet the case for us. So that's why I think that we still have a long way to go.
As Africa's creator economy continues to flourish, it represents opportunities for economic empowerment, job creation, and the application of diverse narratives.
The creative industries accounted for nearly 3 trillion in global GDP in 2020. And as of 2024, the only figure that I have is the creator economy, which is a subsector of the creative industries. And it is estimated to generate over 250 billion globally. So it's hard to say how much Africa accounts out of the 250 billion, but I would say around the 5 to 10% average. And this sector, of course, includes content creators on various platforms, such as YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and other social media networks. I think this is an industry that can be overlooked. If you take a look at Nigeria, for example, Africa's largest economy, the creative industries account for 1.5% of the GDP, compared to 3% of the global GDP, according to the UNESCO. This is a significant indicator of wealth creation, and there's room for improvement.
However, the creative sector faces significant challenges, including inadequate infrastructure, limited access to funding and market, intellectual property issues, and lack of supportive policies and regulations.
I think the strategy should be definitely a combination of infrastructure development, funding, and policy support. So, for example, on infrastructure development, establishing creative hubs and co-working space that can provide artists and creatives with the resources they need to collaborate, innovate, and produce their work is essential, because these hubs can definitely offer facilities such as studios, equipment, but also training programs. We have an example, the British Council Hubs Academy is it's a very interesting model to explore and probably to expand across the continent. The sector also needs educational institutions, because strengthening arts education through schools, universities, specialized training centers, you really nurture talent from a young age. And programs that focus on digital skills and creative entrepreneurship can also equip the individuals with the necessary skills to really succeed in this industry. Because we really need this also layer, this education piece, to scale this sector and take it to the next level. On the funding and investment, I would say it's similar to what IFC has initiated, encouraging venture capital to fund creative industries, companies that can, venture capital investors that can provide the necessary capital for growth is also crucial.
The top financiers have come in to solve these bottlenecks, mostly in the financing front and offering connections to the world markets. In the recently held Basketball Africa League in Kigali, Afreximbank was among the main sponsors of artists that performed, and similarly, the International Finance Corporation IFC has put in initiatives to support the creative economy in 2024.
And our creative industry strategy really encompasses 3 complementary activities. The first is unlocking access to finance and providing support to promising companies really lacking immediate bankability, because it's known that this is a sector where most of the companies lack collateral and are not yet bankable opportunities for institutional investors like us, which usually makes it really difficult for them to raise debt or equity. This means exploring non-traditional financial service providers, such as blended finance facilities, is extremely important. I would say it's crucial. And this is something we've already explored. We are willing to scale. Also allocating venture capital funds to create an economy. I would say the second pillar is developing the ecosystem to really cultivate long-term pipeline of growth. Because to foster long-term growth in this sector, we need more collaborative efforts. Initiatives like Creatify that was led by the World Bank, for example, that aims to build capacity for SMEs in this sector across 7 countries, is definitely one of the type of initiative we could leverage and utilize to address the skills gap and really develop investment readiness programs. And the third pillar is a contribution to the implementation of policy reforms, of course, leveraging and partnering with the World Bank to do so. Because as part of the World Bank, we leverage our work to actively support policy and regulatory reforms to nurture a vibrant creative sector, particularly in countries with strong political commitment that we've seen, like Nigeria, Morocco, and Rwanda.
The private sector in Rwanda as well has underscored the link between the creative economy and economic prosperity.
I think the creative industry is booming in Rwanda. And what we've done, we have a new program called Grow to Scale, which is funded by MasterCard Foundation. And what we want to do, we are focusing on agribusiness and tourism and hospitality. Now, when I talk about tourism and hospitality, you find that even the creative art actually is into that. So we are already working with the Ministry of Youth and Arts to see how we have an MOU that we have signed to ensure that we understand them better, so that actually we can bring along as the financial service providers also to understand them. And whenever, I think something very critical is that as Access to Finance Rwanda is a market catalyst, whenever a private player is feeling that they are not comfortable actually to venture into supporting a certain new segment or new sector or challenging sector, we always come there to de-risk. So one de-risking is actually supporting them in appropriate product development. We provide technical assistance, we build their capacities as financial service providers, but also we de-risk using guarantee schemes. Like now we have a guarantee scheme that is covering up to 70% on portfolio level. Already 1 bank has been signed. We are onboarding 3 more, the large banks. Already that's an opportunity. So we go in together. So we tell them, let's experiment together. So we take a risk, So I think that's the approach we take, because private money, I mean, they're also accountable to their shareholders. They need to provide them returns. So we understand them. And that's why we really we focus on what we do best, which is catalyzing that change, because most of us are from the financial sector.
The potential of Rwanda's creative economy is boundless. With its burgeoning talent, supportive policies and strategic investments in cultural industries, Rwanda stands poised to become a beacon of creativity and innovation in Africa. The future of Rwanda's creative economy is a fusion of tradition and modernity that will drive sustainable growth for the upcoming generations. As the nation continues to cultivate its artistic landscape and digital prowess, the world can expect to see Rwandan creativity not only enrich its own communities, but also leave an indelible mark on the global and cultural stage.